Thanks for joining us on this edition of Business Daily. Coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Lee Ji-yoon. And before we get started, let's first take a quick look at what you can expect from us this morning. A low-key interest rate, will it help or hurt the Korean economy? We talked to an expert about this. A car that will take you on a spin but keep your hands free. Korea's leading automaker unveils its roadmap for self-driving cars. There's not a lot of room for optimism surrounding Korea's promise of growth for this year. Domestic Research Institute are poised to downgrade Korea's pace of growth in their projections later in May and June. Currently, Korea's growth outlook stands in the mid-3% range, but now many are set to be looking at figures in the lower 3% range, or even in the 2% range. This comes as the IMF downgraded its global growth outlook to 3.5% earlier this year. But the biggest blockades to Korea's economic recovery is viewed to be the lag in domestic spending. Reflecting similar sentiments, nearly half of Korea's major industries believe the economic outlook for this year will be bleaker than last year. The Federation of Korean Industries says 13 out of 31 industries surveyed, including those of steel, energy, and textiles, had a negative outlook for this year. Some of the domestic factors of concern cited were sluggish demand, environmental regulations, and overheated competition. Globally, businesses said lackluster growth in other markets and cheaper imports were elements of concern. Meanwhile, 7 sectors such as semiconductors and construction believe conditions will improve this year. Meanwhile, Hyundai Steel says it's preparing to merge with its affiliate, Hyundai Hisco, in a move that would put it head-to-head with Korea's top steel producer, POSCO. It's also a step closer to its long-held dream of becoming the world's one-stop car steel producer. Hisco produces automotive steel pipes and steel sheet products for sister company Hyundai Kia Motors. The takeover, which has been in the works for 2 years, will be completed by July 1st. Driving can be a very tiresome experience, especially if you're sitting in front of the wheel for very long stretches of time. This is why driverless vehicles are becoming an increasingly attractive idea, not only for drivers, but also for automakers. And Korea's leading automaker Hyundai Motor has jumped into the game to make that a part of reality. Our Lee Ji-young tells us more.
Hands on or off the wheel, or with a driver in or outside of the car, this vehicle can still take you to your destination of choice. Korea's leading car maker, Hyundai Motor, recently unveiled its roadmap for driverless vehicle development and part of the progress it had made so far, putting on the road a car that can mirror the movements of another vehicle. Other automakers such as Mercedes and Audi, as well as tech giant Google, have already made advancements. In March, Mercedes unleashed a self-driving car in the streets of San Francisco. Despite these developments, Hyundai says it's quickly catching up.
We don't think we are behind in this game, especially in terms of highway driving assistance features. We will be able to launch it at around the same time or even faster than our competitors.
Hyundai plans to include a semi-autonomous vehicle in its premium sedan Ecoos line later this year, adding a highway driving assistance feature. This will help the car stay within the lane and slow down and speed up as necessary to avoid collisions. Hyundai announced it will invest $1.8 billion in driverless technologies by 2018, and with its sister company Kia Motors, commercialize an autonomous vehicle by 2020. These developments all come as expectations grow for self-driving cars, not only for their added convenience, but also for enhanced safety on the roads. Lee Ji-young, Business Daily.
Despite the dozens of free trade agreements signed, Korea continues to have some of the highest food prices in the world. That's long been blamed on the country's layered distribution system that adds cost for consumers without passing on extra profits to the farmers. But new methods are being introduced to cut back on excessive prices and comes with the use of smartphone apps. Our Eunice Kim has the story.
With a few taps on a smartphone application, this restaurant owner can order exactly the type of meat he's looking for, and chances are at a much lower price.
We used to go to the farmers' markets to find cheap meats, but now I get my goods delivered at much cheaper prices too.
The reason why people like Im are able to get their meats at such prices is because the app connects consumers directly to the livestock farm. Pushing out the middlemen and wholesalers means cutting out the extra costs, but keeping all choices open, making available information such as a grade of meat, slaughter date, and real-time wholesale price.
When you shrink the incredibly complex distribution system, the consumer goes home the winner. They still also have choices, like picking which products they want depending on country of origin.
This particular application was so popular, it was downloaded 5,000 times in less than 2 months. But it's not alone. Many people are also choosing to simplify their used car sales via smartphone apps. Car owners put up pictures and the features of the vehicles they want to put out on the market, while used car dealers across Korea determine the car's price through a bidding process. Smartphone apps such as these are bridging the gap between suppliers and customers, and in turn producing easy and instant access with more competitive prices. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Well, just last month, the Bank of Korea cut interest rates to a fresh record low to 1.75%, jumping on the monetary policy easing bandwagon. But thoughts are divided on whether this move will actually help the domestic economy. We'll talk to an expert in just a minute.
The Bank of Korea's surprise decision to cut its base rate for the first time in 5 months, in a move it says is to boost momentum in the country's efforts towards economic recovery. There have been concerns that this easing of money may add further burden to Korea's many households already mired in debt. But seeing a sudden surge in property transactions and a boost in stock dealings following the rate cut, Korea is now asking itself the question: will this decision help or hurt the Korean economy?
And to tell us more about this, we're now joined by Professor Shin Se-don of Sookmyung Women's University. Thanks for joining us this morning, Professor.
Great to be here.
All right, so let's get right to the point. So last month, it was the third time that the Bank of Korea cut its interest rate in less than a year. Some welcomed this move, but what did you think of it?
Well, I was on the minority side because, lowering the base rate would have some positive effects, especially in the investment. But on the other hand, it would have a negative side on the income, interest income for the asset holders. So you have to measure the good side and bad side, and I think the negative effect will be greater than positive. That's why I was kind of a reserved opinion in that interest rate policy.
Oh, well, then we have to think about the ballooning household debt. That was one of the biggest concerns here. What did you think of that?
Yeah, that's one of the bad effects of the lower interest rate. But actually, the bank loan from the household has been increasing very dramatically, especially for the last 6 months after the lowering of the rate. So in the month of February, the increase rate of the bank loan from the bank by the household is about 12.7%. It's a record-breaking level, and it might continue down the road. So pretty much concern is about the ballooning and exploding housing debts.
But then we've seen a surge in property transactions, and could we say the real estate market has actually been picking up, though?
Well, in the housing market, there are two sides. One is the sales market, and we see some signs of, good signs of the increase in the sales volume units. But on the other hand, the lowering rate made the house owners to shift from the 전세 market to the renting market. So the more apartments are becoming from 전세 to the wholesale. So the 전세 become very scarce, and the premium for the 전세 has become very expensive. That's one of the reasons why people switch from the 전세, one of the form of the renting, form to buying. So that's one of the reasons why the housing sales market has picked up. There's two sides. The sales has been picked up, but we have to be very careful interpreting that. Is that a good sign, or it is because people has no choice other than to buy the house?
Okay. Well, let's shift our gears a bit. What about Korea's stock markets? Have we seen a surge in share dealings, and if there are some risk factors that you saw?
Right. There are two markets. One is Kospi market, and the other one is Kosdaq market. And especially Kosdaq market has been very hot for the last 6 months. And the price has increased more than 20% in the Kosdaq market. Relatively, Kospi market is not as active as Kosdaq has been doing. So, in general, I think the lowering interest rate had a tremendous effect upon the stock market, but that effect has been, concentrated on the Kosdaq market, which seems to be a little, speculative.
Okay. Well, we know that the central bank lowered the key rate to boost the economic recovery momentum. Then what were some external factors that played into this decision? Well,
one of the reasons, the bank had to lower the rate is all other countries in the world, like Japan, China, European Union, on top of the United States. So all the rest of the country, of the world has been lowering the rate. So I think the Bank of Korea had no other choice but to.
Right, jump on the bandwagon. Yes. Well, I guess what matters now is that how do we then minimize the negative side effects that might happen down the line?
One critical negative effect is the ballooning exploding of the housing market, housing prices, and the 전세 markets, and also the stock market. But what worries most about this rate policy is explosion of the bank borrowings by the household, and I think the government and the Bank of Korea has to exercise a very active surveillance over the household debt market in order not to explode that uncontrollable level.
All right, we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that. Thanks for coming in today, Professor, and we'll see you back here very soon.
My pleasure.
All right, that wraps it up for now, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow at the same time, same place. Thanks for watching.